your specs.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. They are, I need him to see.
They also look good.
Thank you.
All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. So, my name is Jake. I'm really excited to be sitting down with the last dinner party today. It's a blast. And I guess first question, this is y'all's first huge tour of North America. How does it feel to be playing stages and venues that were 400 people, and now you're playing stages and venues that are about 4,000 people?
Really cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was sick. We played our first show last night in Austin.
Awesome.
And it'd been 2 years since we've been there
Oh,
playing
wow.
at Scooters Inn. And that was one of our favorite shows of all time. And that was on our first North American tour. And
Yeah.
at that point we thought, wow, it's not going to get any cooler than this. And then last night there were so many people, and it was the venue that Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash had
Oh
played
my
in, and it
goodness.
just felt so insane. And now we're here, and yeah, it's we're feeling really good, really
It's
excited.
a whirlwind. I
Yeah.
bet. So I guess my next question would be, you had this breakout big record, a big success. How did it feel following that up? Were you all trying to do similar sounds to that, or were you more trying to break away and make something that was very distinct from that record? Because from my hearing, this feels like a very distinctive project from the last record.
I don't think we were trying to do anything besides just make another album, and I think we really followed instinct rather than setting expectations or
Oh, I love
goals for
that.
how it would land. So yeah, we just wanted to make another record, and we were so inspired by loads of things that we'd seen, particularly on the road in America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Do you know any of those specifically?
for sure, like the song "This Is the Killer Speaking" came from
Jerry Lee Lewis.
and like Johnny Cash and like
I
all
could
these
hear the
other
country on
guys.
it, too.
Yeah,
I love that song.
exactly. So yeah, it became a really distinct sound just by nature of our different life experiences after the first record, and
Fantastic.
yeah.
I want to talk about This Is the Killer Speaking. It's a great song, but the music video, incredible. What is it like creating a music video like that? Were y'all working behind the scenes to kind of determine the aesthetic direction? Because I really think, you're talking about some of the country roots on that song. It really fits well. It's awesome, kind of country bound, and you've got the set. The set is beautiful. So what was it like to help make that music video?
So fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think we knew from finishing the song that we wanted the music video to be Western inspired, because it just makes sense. And the director was Harv Frost, and she did the majority of our music videos for the first album campaign. So we were really happy to do this one with her because she just understands us so well.
It seems like she really understands the vision, the
Yeah,
aesthetic
yeah.
vision for the band.
She gets it. She's amazing. And we're always super involved with all of our visual creative stuff, all the music videos. And for this one, our pitch was basically just cowboys in Soho in London, and do with that what you will. And
I
then
love it.
in the mood board that we sent out to directors, there was one picture of a centaur that I just found and thought it was cool, and I put it in not thinking much of it. And Harv was the only director who came back with something involving
With
a
the
centaur.
centaur.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I
then
love that.
just made so much sense.
Yeah.
Where it's a Western, but it's made very Last Dinner Party with this fantastical element, and setting it in a very London place, because like Georgia was saying, we're so inspired by Americana on this record, especially on This Is the Killer, but Americana through a British lens.
I love that. Oh, and we're in this country upswing right now. There's a lot of women doing it too, which I think is fantastic. I want to talk about London for a sec. What was it like? The London scene, in my opinion, is maybe one of the most unique scenes right now. You have so many bands. I'm actually wearing a Black Midi shirt right now over here. But I just wanted to talk about, what was it like to, grow up in London and have that be a part of your musical journey and your language?
I mean, neither of us grew up in London, but we became adults in London. Yeah. Because George and I met when we were 18 at uni, and we became best friends because we just went to live shows all the time, and it was a really...
I love that story. That is awesome. So let's actually talk about, so you both went to school, right? I'm looking at your lyrics, and I noticed they read like poetry. I have to say, they read like poetry. Are you drawing from any literature influences, or Gothic influences maybe? Because I get a little bit of Gothic elements from the band. So are there any lyrical influences you're drawing from in that regard?
Certainly. Yeah, I think
Fantastic.
It's hard to point to one or two names in particular, because
there's so many.
Yeah, and it gets so just because we're both big readers and we studied English lit, and I think everything that we consume just gets metabolized and then regurgitated in this new way, and so there's going to be threads of those like Gothic literature that comes through in
Absolutely.
the writing,
I studied English too myself, so that's absolutely awesome. So now let's talk gear for a second. I'm a musician as well, and I'm obsessed with outboard gears, pedals and guitars. Do you have any secret weapons in the studio that you like to use? And I know you're a bassist as well, and I'm a bassist as well. So So do you have any like secret bass tricks or techniques or gear or anything?
Not even.
Yeah?
I think I don't know. I think with like stuff in the low end, it's just about getting like a really rich and full sound.
Absolutely.
And like any sort of like extra little bits and pieces can detract from the role of the bass guitar, which is to support the whole song and to fill out like this entire sort of iceberg of space underneath a song. So I think if you fuck with that, oh sorry, should I swear? Is that allowed? Sorry, I'm Australian.
It's PG-13 rules. You get one.
If I screw with that too much, then it takes away from the sound. But the first pedal I ever got was this Boss, as I called it, SY1.
Is it a synth pedal?
Synth
I
bass
have that on my
pedal.
board. I'm serious. I have that on my board.
Yeah. That was the first one I got, and I use it quite a lot in the set because it has this like amazing customizable
the
nature.
filter space.
Yeah,
you can switch
exactly.
it. Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
That's fantastic.
Abby has a microphone.
I have a microphone.
Well, I mean, there's something to look at that too. That you just need the microphone to create all the music. I was reading an interview, and you talked about Tumblr and you talked about the internet. So I was wondering, is that kind of collage space, was that really helpful in making this record? You're drawing from all these influences, but you're able to, like you said, metabolize them as one group. So was that a big part of it?
Yeah.
I mean, you literally just wrote an essay about it.
Oh, yeah.
No, really?
Yeah, George literally just wrote an essay about that.
Well, tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I just think that, like, especially as young people on the internet, on Tumblr, in that period of, like, early 2010s, it sort of taught us this way of taking inspiration from a really diverse range of things, and it didn't really matter that it was from different time periods or the medieval period or like literally yesterday or different genres, different art forms. I think one of the reasons that we come across as so maximalist is because we learned this methodology of like just being able to cohesively draw together things and have a unique perspective and point of view. And I think that the internet, for all its faults,
oh my goodness,
was actually essential in world building and creating an aesthetic that is unique to us.
Absolutely, and I think you can totally see that you're drawing from so many different influences. Do you have any like specific sonic influences you're drawing from the record? You mentioned Americana, but I hear so many people in your music. I'm hearing Boeing, I'm hearing Florence and the Machine, I'm hearing Chapel Rowan. So are there any specific people you were drawn to, or was it more of just kind of a broad thing in that regard?
I'm trying to think what was on the. I mean, the
Rolling Stones
was a big one we kept coming back to in the studio. Bowie always in there.
Just eternal.
He's always in there. Kate Bush.
Nice.
I think Alt J sometimes.
Ooh, I like that.
And again, the stuff I think that we listen to in the studio that we love and that we reference, and then you don't really hear it. Like we listen to a lot of the Beach Boys. I don't think our music sounds like the Beach Boys, but it's like it's.
I can hear it in the harmonies, when they're singing together.
Exactly.
There's like
like
little
ABBA
bits and pieces that you're pulling from everything together.
We magpie everything.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, I love that, magpie. So, do you all have a personal favorite song from the record? I know this is a super hard question to ask because you're picking from your babies here, and they're all brilliant, I have to say. Yeah. But do you have a personal favorite?
I have.
So hard.
I switch between two.
Yeah.
Inferno and Woman is a Tree.
Nice.
I think are mine.
I think mine would be Agnes Day and The Scythe.
Ooh, I love The Scythe. That's one of my favorites. Yeah. I think personally my favorite is Killer Speaking, purely because the Americana is amazing. Speaking of Americana, how's it feel to be back in the States? Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited.
Yeah.
Got a few more weeks here, so
that's awesome.
Just settling in, figuring it out.
So one of the things that struck me about the band was y'all rose up fast, and it's amazing to see. Has a part of that been, I think you've created and cultivated a fandom as well that not a lot of other bands, even though they may be large, have been able to achieve. Has that been a conscious effort, or has that just kind of been a result of how close I feel the band is together?
I think the fandom it's a result of us really wanting a community from our live shows. I think we didn't set out to create a blueprint for a TLDP fan or a big fan base or a certain kind of thing. I think when we started, the live show was most important to us as a band and as people.
Nice.
And because it was post-COVID and things were just opening up again, and there was such a lack of community, physical community presence. And
third spaces and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's been really wonderful to watch our fan base grow around that and people coming to a physical space and making friends and being together and it all coming from the live show. I think that's been really lovely.
I think it's especially nice in the States to have a concert space that is also so openly queer and openly accepting of queer people. Has that been a part of the band?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I think it's innately like who we are.
You can't separate it.
And it's like what we write about and the kind of people we attract and it's just, and we're really honored that a lot of feedback we get from our fans is that they feel really safe when they come to our shows, and I think that's amazing. Really precious.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very honored to.
Well, congratulations. That's been y'all's work. Have been able to do that and facilitate that space for fans.
Thank you.
I have to say, when we got the actual record, I was expecting, just the record itself, but you have graciously put a second record in there of covers. Of those covers, what was your favorite to cover?
Wicked Game for me.
Nice.
I think This Town Ain't Big Enough for the both of us. It's just
nice.
So much fun.
Crazy.
It's fantastic. So you're right off releasing this record, and it's a huge hit. Do you have, I know it's early to ask this, but do you have anything else in the plans right now, music-wise? I know you're just getting started on this tour.
We do.
You do?
Yeah.
It's coming.
Oh, wow. Already?
That's all I can say.
Y'all work quick. That is fantastic. I'm very, very excited. What do you think, music-wise, helped y'all get this fantastic running start? If there any hook you think you have music-wise that maybe people aren't offering today in a lot of normative pop music?
I don't know. If that's, you never know.
Yeah.
Like, if we knew, we would do it all the time. I think you can't predict.
No, you can't.
Really. I think because when we did the first record, we loved Nothing Matters and we knew it was a great song. Mm-hmm. But I think all of us wanted Burn Alive to be the first single.
Yeah. I had no idea that Nothing Matters would
be the monster hit that it was.
No, I was like, maybe like it's not even a single. It's just like on the record.
It's just a song. And we thought, we were like, oh yeah, Burn Alive has got the big chorus or the hook or whatever. And I think we'd never operate under that way of making and releasing music because I think it's just not.
It's not real. It's not authentic.
It's not artistically fun.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah. Well, I think after Nothing Matters, I definitely went through a writer's block period where I kept trying to write things, and I just kept thinking, this isn't catchy, and then I had to stop doing that because I think it wasn't very
fun.
No, and it wasn't fun. And it wasn't conducive of making good music.
What's the point of making music with your friends if it's not going to be fun? Exactly. I think that's something that draws me to the band as well. You're having fun on the records. It just sounds like a great time. I've got one more question for y'all, and this is a hard one, I will say. How do you know when a song is done?
Oh God,
we don't.
Yeah,
we have to
tell
be
me about that.
stopped.
We have to have a deadline. Otherwise we will just continue to be like, oh, should we put a fucking like tambourine or whatever? Like,
should it be another 8 minutes?
No more glockenspiel. Like it's okay. But
we have to be stopped.
If we had a year to make one song, we would use the entire year.
No,
it's crazy.
And it would be great.
And it would be over needed.
100 different timbres. You're like Brian Eno.
Yeah, and that's maybe coming as soon as as soon as people start stopping us.
Yeah.
Stop stopping us. Stop stopping us. As soon as people stop stopping us.
Yeah.
We will make a Brian Eno 3-hour record.
Okay. Amazing. Well, I'm excited for it. I think that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. All right, do you want to get a